Hello and welcome to Cut to Reveal, a podcast where we discuss the editing art form and or the hurdles that go with that career path. My name is Piotr and I'm here with my co-host Ricky, who has the new camera setup.
Hello. I'm super excited because now you can see me not on a webcam and I look way better. Today, we're going to be talking about transitioning from a steady position, so you worked at a company for a while, into freelance. Before we get into that, we want to talk a little bit about our sponsor, Riverside.
Yeah, Riverside replaced Zoom for us. It records everything locally and then uploads it to the cloud. So the quality that you get from your webcam, so what Ricky is getting from his camera setup right now, is what we get with Riverside. He doesn't have to record it, internally in the camera. It's just stored to the computer disk, then uploaded to the cloud, to Riverside, where an editor can download the files and use in the edit. And that's something that we love it for. And we'll speak a little bit more about Riverside in the middle of the episode. But right now, let's get to the topic.
So, you're working at your full-time job for however long, you get tired of it, and now you're like, I want to break out into freelance. And so the biggest question now is that you've been sitting in one place for so long, you haven't really been able to network aside from maybe the clients that you have. And now you're basically going out into the world like a bird leaving the nest. So what do? What's the first thing that you should do?
Yeah, and actually, I just want to bring out the fact that I was in that situation. I used to work as a staff editor. And one day I just decided it's time to move on to something else, to freelancing again. I have been freelancing before being a staff worker. But not for so long, and it wasn't full time back then. But there was a point I said to myself, okay, that's enough. I got to work for my own, bill ticket, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing that I did, and I think that anyone in that situation should do, is reach out to any work relationship you had in the past.
Yeah.
It can be, and not only work relationship, also friends. Let them know that you are available, that what you are transitioning to, what kind of projects you are looking for. For example, if you have a friend that works in marketing, right? There is a good chance that their agency will need a video editor at some point. Maybe you have a friend who runs a YouTube channel. Maybe they will need some help with editing from time to time. Maybe you have a friend who I don't know, does real movies. Tell him about your plans, right? Mm-hmm. So all of that stuff, reach out to people let them know that you are available.
Oh, 100%. The same thing happened to me, except it wasn't that I was like, I'm going to go freelance. It was just like, okay, everybody's getting fired. We're all going freelance. But the first people that were cut were all the senior level people. And then later was all the junior level people, which at the time was myself. And even then, all the higher level people, they were all reaching out to clients that they had worked for within the production house. So all of our clients they were reaching out to, and basically not so much as like, give me work, but like, hey, so I am available. So if you need freelance, I'm the person that you reach out to. And then basically, once we all went out into the world, when I became freelance, it was the same thing. I reached out to them, or they actually reached out to me and said, hey, I know this guy, he can edit because I've got all this work from these other clients. But I was able to get introduced to those clients through the people that I worked with at the old production house, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was just kind of like informing people, letting people know that you're now on the street, like, hey, I'm freelance, regardless of if they're in that industry or not. So all of that stuff is viable. All of that stuff is important to do.
Especially at the beginning. Yeah. By the way, when was it? 2008 or when was it? Because I'm wondering, you said that everyone was getting fired. So.
Oh no, it wasn't 2008. It was past that. It was 2011. And it wasn't specific to the economy, to the financial bubble in the States. Mm-hmm. It was basically something different that we can talk about later. But basically, it was sure. Specific to the company.
Okay. So copy that.
But
copy that. Okay. So that first outreach is the first step, but it's also just the beginning of learning how to network, which is one of the most important skills when going freelance, and something that we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. But now let's talk about what's the next step. And What I've noticed, and I've started a few brands by this point, and I've noticed that many people, myself included, in the beginning, focus on the wrong things in the first month of the existence of their business. They do what I call first business card approach, which is they think about their logo, how their brand will be named, what the website will look like, how will it be designed, and all of these things that really do not bring them work. That shouldn't be the focus at the beginning. It should be something that you need to think about constantly, but only if you focus on correct things first. And as we said, networking is something that you have to focus on as quickly as possible. And then if you have some time left, then you focus on what's the logo, what's the name of the brand,
right,
what's your reel, and things like that, right?
It's definitely something that you should be thinking about at the same time, but your priority should definitely be on networking, getting those connections, compared to just, we'll say, the cosmetic look of like, oh, this guy's got a great website, this guy's got a cool logo and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if anything, you'd want a business card with just your name on it and your phone number and email, so that you can be like, I have a card, here's my information, more so than like, here's the cool card that I've got. All of this stuff is kind of working together almost at the same time, as overwhelming as that sounds, but it's something that is in the back of your mind. You're like, okay, I'm reaching out to these connections. I need to showcase the stuff that I've done. So obviously you're going to need a reel or a website. Simply put, you could just create a reel and put it up on YouTube without creating an entire website. And within that, thinking about that reel is, what kind of editing do you want to be doing? Like if it's more of the same of what you were doing in the production house or whatever, your previous job, then you can just make it that way. And it'd be simply, if you want to start doing new stuff, then you kind of have to self-generate that things. But regardless, it's something that you got to think about, like, what do I want to be doing next? And then basically go from there.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, I don't think you should actually put reel on YouTube unless you have following there already. If you have people that will care about your reel, then yeah, put it on YouTube. But basically, YouTube is a social platform. If you send it to clients and it says like 0 subscribers, it doesn't support your credibility anyway. I think it's much better to put this kind of stuff on like a video hosting platform. And YouTube is not a video hosting platform. It serves as a video hosting platform for many people, but it's not at its core. So Vimeo, Wistia would be much better choices, in my opinion, to post your reel to. But that's just a side note. Sorry, Ricky. Continue.
Regardless, it's just the idea of like, you could simply put that up rather than building a website.
Yeah.
A place where a client can go to look at your reel. That's the most important thing, regardless of how they're viewing it or what their expectations of viewing that. But with that, we'll talk a little bit more about how the reel is important, and that you want to do something that stands out in your reel. Like, this is you. This isn't just like the work that you do, it's also who you are. So you want to add a little bit of that flavor of yourself into there, because that's important. And you want to, make it so that it's almost like a promo or a commercial for yourself. So try to interject as much as you can in there, so that people will be like, this guy's different. This is different than the other reels that I've seen. I mean, everything is within context. So if you're talking about, you're reaching out to clients that are like bigger companies who get a lot of reels because they have a stable of freelancers, then it's going to be really important that you make your reel super unique. That's going to stand out compared to like this woman I know down the street who needs a promo for her flower shop. Like, they're not going to be looking at it in the same way as these corporate entities or, bigger companies and stuff like that. So that's just something that should be kept in mind, but also is equally as important. We talked more about the reels and stuff like that in episode 7, and that'll give you some ideas or shows you some examples of like how you can, or like what people have done to make things more unique, rather than just like, here's a montage of all the work that I've done.
Yeah, and one last thing that I would add to it is that it's good to know who you're after. Instead of like throwing a reel that consists of all types of work, it's best if you know what is the type of work you want to do, and then construct a reel with that in mind. So even if you made like thousands of wedding videos, but that's not your target, don't include wedding videos there. Okay, so that would be my approach at least. As you might know, I don't have a reel actually, but if I were to do one, if I were to create one, I would focus on like what's the type of client I want to attract, and I wouldn't include stuff that doesn't support my credibility in their eyes. Okay, Ricky. So do we switch? Do we talk about skills that you will need to learn along the road?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
we need
freelancing
skills.
freelancing is a different beast.
It's not for the faint of heart. I always say that
It's
it's not for the faint of heart.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I like it. And no one will actually teach you how to freelance. There are some courses online and things like that, but most of it you will have to just acquire as you go. There is no way around it. And the things that we'll mention, like, I'm not claiming that I know all this stuff. I'm just aware that these are the things that I have to work on constantly, to improve, to get me to the place I want to be, right?
Yeah.
What was the first skill that comes to your mind, Ricky, when thinking about what's important for a freelance editor, for a freelance creator, actually?
Right off the bat, managing your time.
Yeah.
So how you will be productive for the client, but productive for yourself, so that you don't feel whatever stress of like trying to get things done in time. So the more efficient you can become, the much better you'll be able to be at your job, and it'll be much more enjoyable in that sense. So yeah, I'm going to say managing your time is the first thing.
Yeah, managing your time is a big one. It's actually a little bit connected to what I teach in editing chef as well. We've got the lesson about managing time there, and it's a constant struggle, to be honest. It's not like I have mastered it, but that's something that as a freelancer you have to think about. You have to make a conscious decision to work on that skill. I think that's the core issue here. And there are tools that we discuss in the editing chef, like the Hemingway rule, for example, like blocking your time and things like that can help you in the process to make things more predictable, to not overload yourself with work, and at the same time to make things as productive, as efficient as possible, right? So yeah, managing your time is a big one that you have to constantly improve on. The one that comes to my mind is that is like maybe not super essential. It's not super difficult, but that's something you didn't have to think about when you were a staff worker. Is bookkeeping. You will have to think about what's the income, what's the outcome, what's the cash flow basically, and that's something you probably didn't have to think about as a staff member, right? That's a small one, but also an important one when you're doing that transition. Ricky, how about the next one?
The next one I would say probably would be negotiating. So this is more on a personal level in regards to one-on-one with the client, whether it be face-to-face, or most likely it'll be over email about, okay, what do I want? What do you want to give me for this? What are my rates? If the client's bigger, they might honor the rates that you have. And if they're not, then you got to figure out, okay, how can I do this job where I don't feel bad about myself, or I don't feel like I'm being taken advantage of, but also still giving value to the client as well as to myself.
Yeah, and in my observation, at the beginning, people tend to charge less than they should, because they feel like, I'm just starting out, right? You usually should charge a little bit more than you think you should. That's also just for the cash flow. I've seen many beginning freelancers who just their cash flow is just from the first to the first of the month. Right? And that's not sustainable. The burnout might come very quickly. And, the funny thing is that instead of being super busy all the time working for a small rate, you could probably do the same amount of income working less for those clients that will be willing to pay you a little bit more. But obviously there is no shortcut here, and there is no like a silver bullet solution that I could provide, right? It's something that you will have to test in your niche, in your location, and, run with it, improve on it as you go.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, like, especially for your location, and if you're working at a production house already, you're getting production house clients, they're going to know how much they pay. So usually, by that I mean they pay your company that you used to work for a certain amount of money for editing work. So whatever money that you're going to be asking for to do freelance stuff will probably be significantly less than what the production house that you were working for was paying for editing.
Yeah.
And also keep in mind that you want to get paid in a way that will enable you to live. And that I mean you want to be able to cover your bills and to be able to like feed yourself and to put a roof over your head. So keep that in mind. So don't, I wouldn't say highball yourself, but don't lowball yourself. Think about like, okay, what do I need to pay my bills? If
What's
I
the minimum,
have this rate,
level?
then I know exactly. And then, and if a client pushes back on that, if they're a good client or a bad client, but just in general, then you have like, well, this is what I need to be able to pay my bills. This is why I'm asking for that. And either they're like, okay, that's fine. Or they're like, nah. And then, obviously with that stuff that's when the negotiating comes in. That's when you got to start figuring stuff out. And that's something that, you can find that stuff online, how to negotiate. But really, once you're in there and mixing it up like that, that's how you really learn. And, it's going to be a case-to-case basis depending on a client. So negotiating is very important.
Yeah, negotiating is like discussion. It's not bargaining. You don't want to bargain with the client. You don't want to be like, no, I will do it for $50 more or something like that. That doesn't work. You have to talk with them. You just have to like explain your position. Ask them about, okay, I don't know, what's the amount you used to pay for editing and things like that. Okay, that doesn't work for me because it will not allow me to pay my bills, as you said. And like just having discussion. This is negotiation, not just like throwing numbers in the air between one another.
It's forcing you to communicate with people.
Yeah, exactly. And communication, what you just said, this is actually a next skill that is very important to constantly work on. Because like not being clear on what you need, what the client means and things like that, that's the moment where you have to take that conversation and ask. Basically, people need to learn how to ask very often. That's the issue, in my opinion. You shouldn't guess. And usually if your client is like, providing you feedback that is not clear to you, it's just because they are under the curse of knowledge syndrome, which is they know about something that they assume you should know as well, but they will not mind if you just ask. Like they will probably be like, oh my goodness, I shouldn't assume that you already know it. That's right. Let me explain what I mean, right? Yeah. That approach with like, let's communicate clearly. And whenever there is some kind of, something that needs to be clarified further, that's the approach that you as a freelancer should very much focus on.
Right. You shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. And I would say that maybe if this was number 5 of the skills you need to know, this would be 5A. And I think this ties in with that also, is that communication is important about honesty. So don't pretend like I know what you're talking about, and then something happens down the line where it all falls apart because you were too afraid to ask a question. It boils down to honesty and accountability, because if you show that you're honest, like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, tell me what's happening so that I know that I can do my job correctly. And even just like being like, I didn't know what was happening and I did it, and now it's all effed up. And that's my own fault. Like accountability for like, okay, this is a mistake I made also plays into that communication thing, which is very important because that goes back to, the relationship building that you have with these clients or these new clients and whatever. And so that will strengthen your relationship with them, and they'll know, okay, this guy's honest. I know what I'm getting into whenever I work with Piotr or Ricky or whoever, or, so that's something to also keep in mind, is just like you communicating in a way comes from a place of honesty, and it just makes things easier. I mean, that's also a part of the first skill we talked about, managing your time, being efficient, like being honest and asking the right questions. That's all a part of efficiency. If you don't do that stuff, it's going to take you longer, because then you're going to have to come back to square one and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Help me out here. What are the questions that I need to be asking?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry for talking about editing chef again, but that's why actually we have the lesson on client feedback in there. Like because it has to do with productivity. If you're not productive with the way you manage feedback, you spend more time on your work, and you will be less efficient, and you will build less trust with your client, and it all like compounds as a snowball effect, right? Yeah, and I really love what you said about like being accountable for your own mistakes as well. Because as soon as you admit that, yes, I made a mistake, the sooner the conversation can go in the productive direction instead of just like, I don't know, finding who's guilty here, right? If you're guilty, just say it, and the client will be glad that you did. Like, it will only benefit you, actually. So yeah, the next one is connected to communicating, because that's a part of it. It's a sub-skill of communication, but the one that we have to bring out here as well, that is listening. If you're a good listener, you will be a good communicator, most of the time at least. Knowing how to listen is just more important than knowing what to say. If you're a good listener, it goes a long way. Like I've heard like people who teach communication saying that the most important skill in communication is listening.
Right.
If you're a good listener, your negotiating skills will be good as well. That's weird, but that's the way it works. I mean, it's not weird.
Also, part of listening is paying attention, which is obviously listening, but then also within maybe not so much the communication of it, but also paying attention to detail, which is usually why people are hiring you, because you're a detail-oriented worker or whatever. You can see those things and you're paying attention to that. And that's also very important. A client doesn't want a forgetful worker. They want somebody who pays attention, hears what they're saying, and can create whatever they're talking about. And, can be like, okay, well, what about this shot? Or what about that shot? And this doesn't, we've talked about this before with making movies, when we've talked to editors who do film and TV shows, is that, they go through all the footage so that they know what they have to work with. And so, that is going to be, when you're working with a client specifically, they're going to be like, hey, what about this video? Or I remember this take about, what about that and stuff. And you can be like, I remember that. We can go here. Or you can be like, that's totally different than what actually happened. This is the footage that we have. And you can basically show that. And then you're proving that you are detail oriented, because you can point to specific stuff within the footage or within whatever. But so that's another thing about listening and paying attention and communicating it. It's all very, very important. It's all very important.
Yeah, exactly. And note-taking system is important as well. Because like for me, for example, if I don't put things on my to-do list, I tend to forget. But that's something you have to test yourself, what works for you. Note-taking system is really important. Yeah. Okay, any other skill you want to add, Ricky?
I think kind of that works in with like the honesty. So maybe these last two ones are kind of meld into each other. And I would say patience and humility. Patience, because you're going to be dealing with you might be dealing with a lot of big personalities. As we've talked about before on this podcast, it's like you're there to help them. You're not there to be the expert to tell them exactly what you can do and you're the right way or the highway. So be patient with them, because they may not know how to communicate what they're talking about, which is why you have to ask questions. Humility plays in because they're going to look at stuff that you've done and they might not like it. And depending on what type of personality they have, they might tell you in a very brash or harsh way that you might take personally. But don't take things personally, because it's not usually about your work as a worker. Like, you do bad work, it's just like the thing that they did is not exactly what they have in their mind. So you're there to help them figure that out. So patience and humility, I think, are an important aspect or important skill to cultivate as a freelancer.
Very good points. Very good points. I agree. And funny thing is that all of these skills that we've just mentioned, they are on top of what you already need to know, right? So editors, it's quite obvious to anyone that they have to learn like technical skills, right? And that's something that is like the easiest one to learn, how to, run your software and things like that. Obviously, there are ways you can still improve on that, and it shouldn't be like forget about it. But that's something that you have to know right away, right? And that's the easiest one to acquire, the skill that is the easiest to acquire, kind of. Another one that is also like going with you from that staff position is like creative editing. So whatever is in your editing arsenal, of your techniques, skills, sensitivity and things like that. These are the things that will transition to freelancing very easily, of course. They will not be affected in any way, actually, right? But all of these things that we've just mentioned are just added skills that you have to think about consciously. If you do it, if you think about them consciously, then it's just a matter of time before you get good at them. Obviously, there is still a possibility to improve in all of them, and these are all lifelong learning skills. But yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. There's constant improvement.
Yeah.
I mean, we've said it here. We just said it in this episode that, we're not experts on this. This is stuff that we've done, and we're doing it well enough that we can we can support ourselves and we know how to do it.
Yep.
But there's always room for improvement. It's a constant battle. It's just something that you shouldn't be overwhelmed with. Or, when people are making that transition from staff to freelance, it's not something that they think of. And they might already have these skills because they utilize them in their staff position. Because when you're dealing with clients sitting right next to you, you have to have that communication. You have to be able to talk with them and whatever. And so if you are good at that in that scenario, then whatever client that you're working with, you're creating a relationship with them that when you are not working staff and become a freelancer, that you can go back to and be like, hey, we had a good time working together. I want to let you know that I'm freelance now. So if you need somebody to do whatever, I'm available. And, they'll appreciate it. And they're like, all right, great. I love working with you. So I'll come back. So all these skills that we talked about, we'll put a list of the things in the description of the episode so you can see what we talk about. A quick reference guide of whatever.
Also, I wanted to add some extra tips that maybe are not so straightforward, but I think are still important and relevant as well. I think that many freelancers tend to go with what sticks on the wall. They throw all their, they try to find clients. Once they do, they kind of stick with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to also constantly, maybe not constantly, but from time to time, stop and think, what is actually the type of work I want to do? Who are the clients that I want to work with?
Mm-hmm.
And try to be specific about it. Try to find your ideal client, ideal work that you want to do, and then move towards that goal, right? And that's something that I think many freelancers tend to forget to do. Focus on what's the end goal you want to accomplish. And the end goal can change. So it's not you have to come up with the idea that will be once you decide it has to stay this way. You can adjust your end goal, right? But you should have it. This way, you're going in the right direction with the experience that you already have. So, for example, in the past, I always thought I want to work for big brands. I want to be editor of commercials of Toyota commercials, for example, right? McDonald's, things like that. That was something that I thought I want to do. But when I worked in that production house, right, video production house for a while, I discovered that's not my world. I don't want to deal with agencies that are middle stakeholders between me and the creator, director, and things like that, right? And having all these hierarchy of positions, it doesn't work for me. I don't want to deal with people with huge egos, and that's not for me. So but I didn't know it back then, so I constantly evaluate what's my end goal. And one last thing that I want to add to it is that if you are pitching to a client, it's good to have a proof of concept, proof of work, right? So instead of just pitching to them, hey, I would like to edit your videos, it's better to go with, hey, look at that. I just took a video that you made. I made a shorter version of it. I could produce things like that for you on a regular basis. How do you feel about it? Think about what's the problem of the client you want to solve. If you can prove to them that you can solve the problem, they will be much more likely to hire you to work on some things for them. So that's like a pro tip, I guess, that takes time. But I guess it's better to spend time this way than to think about like what your logo should look like, or or business card, what paper should it be on, and things like that. So
simply put, you want to show them what it is that you can do for them, not what they can do for you. So keep that in mind, is that that plays back into humility, is that you're coming with them being like, this is the stuff that I can do for you. This is how I can improve your life and make things better for you. Don't you want to do this? This is great. I'm great, right? You think I'm great. So just to keep that in mind. I hope that this helps with some of you out there. If you have any other questions about this stuff or want us to reiterate or explain it in a different way, you can leave us a message on SpeakPipe, or you can always email us at podcast@cuttothepoint.com, or reach out to us on Instagram at cut2reveal.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was terrible, but that's the information. You understand what I'm saying out there. Anyway.
Okay, and now it's time for the game. If you don't know what the game is, Ricky will explain in a moment. But before we do that, we just want to briefly mention Riverside again. Another thing that I love about it is that you have like 4 roles that you can invite people to the room. They can be invited as a host, as a guest, as the audience member, or as a producer. So for example, a producer is a role for someone who can adjust like audio levels during the recording and so on, but he's not included in the recording. People can see him, but he's not included in the recording, right? The audience member, on the other hand, is someone who can raise his hand if needed, but he's not seen by both host and guest during the recording. So their presence is not distracting to them. So for example, you can have a host, a guest having a conversation, eye to eye, so to speak, right? With thousands of people in the audience. So if you want to check Riverside, and if it works for you, go to cuttothepoint.com/Riverside. And there is actually 15% off coupon code associated with that link. So enjoy. Yeah. And now it's time for the game. Ricky, can you explain the rules of the game?
I can. So the game it's like categories. If you played categories, so basically we ask a question and then it's a simple answer. So name a movie with a lion in it, and Peter would say,
Lion King.
So it's as easy as that. Peter and I will give each other 3 different questions. Each question is a point. If it's a 1 answer question, we get 10 seconds on the clock. If it's more than 1 answer question, then we'll get 30 seconds on the clock. And that's basically it. And then by the end, there'll be a winner, it'll be tied, or there's whatever. You understand how games work. So that's
last time there was a tie. I just want to stress that fact because I usually lose, but not last time. So I don't always lose. I'm just putting it out there in case I lose today because I feel like I will. I still haven't eaten my second breakfast, so I'm a little bit hungry. It may improve. It may have effect on my performance.
All right, so let's get into it. Let me put 10 seconds on the clock. Oh, and also these are all about movies and TV shows. All right, I got 10 seconds on the clock for this question. Peter, name the long-running TV series that Bryan Cranston was in before Breaking Bad.
Oh, fuck. X-Files.
No.
Malcolm in the Middle is another one.
Yes, Malcolm
X-Files,
in the Middle.
He was in X-Files as well.
But not for very long, was he?
No, he was like in 1 episode, but it's a long-running series. So it depends on how you.
Oh, that's true. I guess so.
But Malcolm in the Middle is my second answer. I got it. I didn't I? I said Malcolm in the Middle as well. And X-Files, yeah.
All right, I'll give it to you.
Good,
One
good. I did remember about Malcolm in the Middle as well. It just wasn't my first thought in my head.
I asked the question incorrectly, so it opened up the field for Peter to get it correctly.
Sure. But I also got the Malcolm in the Middle, didn't I? I mean, maybe you've got the luck and you heard it later, but I said it while you were saying it as well. So sorry, I'm just like...
You did. I mean, that was past the 10 seconds, I'll just say, but...
Oh my goodness, why is it so important for me?
All right.
That was a fun one, actually. I need to give it to you. Okay, so are you ready?
I'm ready.
10 seconds on the clock. So, Name a film that doesn't have a dialogue in at least 5 minutes at the beginning.
That doesn't have a dialogue in the first 5 minutes? A Quiet Place?
Probably so. Yeah, I haven't watched it, but I've read the script. But I actually read the script without watching it, and I don't recall any dialogue there. So it was all descriptive.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I've got it. I've given it to you.
And as you can hear, this is kind of also going on the honor system because sometimes we've never seen the movies that we're talking about. So if you know the correct answer and if we're wrong on anything, leave us a message. Let us know in the comments or email us. All right, this is for question 2 for Peter. This is okay. I'm looking for 3 answers.
Oh, damn
so
it.
30 seconds on the clock. All right. Peter, name 3 actors who played Batman.
Oh, fuck. Christian Bale. Hugh what am I talking about? Pattison. I can't. James Pattison. What's his name?
Yep,
I can't remember.
Yep, that's right. You're right.
Come on.
You're so close.
My head is empty. No, I will not. I can't remember.
Oh. only 2.
Please tell me. Michael Keaton. Of course, Michael Keaton. My goodness, first Batman movies I've watched. My goodness.
Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer as well. I wanted to say George Clooney, but I wasn't sure. I wanted to say it.
Yeah, George Clooney. And Adam West, I would have accepted Adam West also played Batman.
I don't know who Adam West is. Should I?
Adam West is from the 60s. He's the original.
Okay.
Not the original, but he was from the TV show in the 60s.
Okay.
I'll give you 3/4 of a point for that because 3 would have been 1, but 3/4.
Thank you. I should have gotten it. I seriously wanted to say George Clooney. I just was like, in my head, I was like, really? No, probably not. But yeah. I to be honest, I don't recall him that well in Batman. That's why I doubted myself. But I don't know how I could forget about Michael Keaton because these are the first Batman movies that I watched as a kid.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I could forget about him. I honestly don't.
It's the pressure of 30 seconds. 30 seconds on the clock.
Yeah.
Everything goes out the window.
Are you ready for the next one?
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, so let's go with the 3 movies type of question again.
Okay.
And to be honest, I'm not so sure if it will be easy for you or not. So sorry if it's not. I just don't know if you watch this type of movies or not. So name 3.
Okay.
Sorry. Name 3 Hayao Miyazaki films, animated films.
Spirited Away.
1.
Princess Mononoke and
2.
Howl's Moving Castle.
That's it. You've got it. Full point. Definitely. Yeah. All correct.
Ooh.
Very well. Have you watched all of them?
I have actually owned all of those.
We are recording it on July 15th. But yesterday I've seen Jim Cummings tweeting that it's like, I think, 25th or 15th. Oh my goodness, I can't remember. Anniversary of Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, 15 at least.
Is it 25?
Isn't it
too much? Yeah, 25 years ago. So on July 13, it was 25 years since Princess Mononoke saw the light of the day. I love this film. I honestly do.
It's fantastic.
It's one of my favorite films ever. Okay, anyway, I'm ready for your question.
Okay. All right. There's 10 seconds. 10 seconds on the clock. One answer. Okay. This might be hard, but I feel like you should know this. In what year did Chloe Zhao's Nomadland win the Oscar for Best Picture?
Oh, that's a very good one. It was year 2021. I mean, yes! It was for 2020 film, but it was in 2021, of course. Yeah.
Yes, you got it.
Thank you.
Give the man a prize.
That's almost a set of points. Like, I can't believe it. Does it come with practice, or is it just my lucky day?
Yeah. I don't know.
Probably just a lucky day.
It's Friday. It's a lucky day. That's got it. So you're leading right now with 2 3/4 points.
Okay, so I haven't asked this type of question yet. Who edited Raging Bull?
Oh my God. I know this. Francis Parker.
No.
Francis Parker?
Raging Bull? Who edited Raging Bull?
Didn't she?
Scorsese's film.
Yeah.
Scorsese's film.
I don't know. Scorsese edited it?
No.
Who edited it?
Thelma Schoonmaker.
Oh, Thelma Schoonmaker. Why was I thinking Francis Parker? Duh. Okay. Another very talented female editor. I was getting them confused.
Is it my first victory?
This is your first victory.
It's my first victory. I will.
People, you've heard, this is history out of the, Okay. Peter is running around.
It's a small room, but still.
So that in the history of the game, this is the first time Peter's won. So please send him congratulations either through SpeakPipe or through our email or on our Instagram and the comments in the comments section on YouTube.
No, it was fun. It was fun. I liked your questions, all of them. I liked the one about what actors played Batman. It was very good, actually, because it gave a lot of options. It was a very good question. I loved it.
If you have been a long-time listener of the game, you know that the first questions we asked were like, what movie has a robot in it? And what movie has a flying car? And now we're running out of those kind of questions, and we're kind of mixing it up with actual actors and Oscar winners, which the last time we played the game, Peter asked me about who won Best Film this year, 2022, which I got wrong. And if you didn't know, it was Coda.
Yeah, it was a surprise, I think. So it was like a winner that very few people expected, and that's probably why it's hard to recall. Anyway.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the game and of the podcast. As we've been repeating, if you have a question or a comment or ways for us to improve, or if you want to give us ideas, you can send it to us at SpeakPipe. There'll be a link in the description, as well as our email, podcast@cuttothepoint.com. We're also on Instagram, and that's at cuttoreveal, or leave us a comment in the YouTube comments. That's all I've got. Peter, do you have anything you'd like to add before we get out of here?
No, just that we will have a very exciting interview for you in 2 weeks. So stay tuned for that.
Until then, take care.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy day.
If you like what you've heard, please rate, review, or subscribe on whatever platform you've listened to this on.
Your reviews help other editors to discover the show, and tell your friends.
Also, if you have any questions or comments, leave us a message at SpeakPipe. There's a link in the description, or email us at podcast@cuttothepoint.com.